And we continue with our elections take, particularly the registration weekend here on the late edition. We speak now to elections expert Tselane. A very good evening to you, Mr. Tselane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So, unfortunately, before we got disrupted by the line, I was asking, just looking back at the last elections, the number has gone down of people who actually are participating in the democratic process. In 2019, only 49% of those of voting age actually showed up on election day. What are the hopes for this registration drive?
Voter registration is very important for the elections, particularly because if a person is not registered, it means that person is not going to be able to participate in the electoral process. Therefore, it is, of course, a concern if there is a low voter turnout, and registration is also important for the electoral commission, because it helps the commission to organize its own logistics. So we are hoping that during this voter registration weekend, we will actually have more people participating, either by going to the voting station or by taking advantage of the platforms that have been created, such as the online registration that the IEC has provided.
It's the lackluster or lack of enthusiasm that we've seen from people colleagues have interviewed. Young people in particular stayed away in 2019. Only 15% of all eligible voters aged 18 to 19 and 30% of 20 to 29-year-olds actually cast a vote. And the Electoral Commission wrote on social media this weekend saying, calling out the 40 million unregistered youth, time to step up. But what is making them want to step up? I know a lot of people want change, but it's the type of change. If people say it seems like it'll be more of the same.
There's a major difference between these elections and the elections that have taken place previously. Firstly, the number of political parties that will be participating, I think it is much more higher. But secondly, unlike in the past, we will have for the first time individuals participating as individuals and not through membership of any political parties, what we commonly refer to as independents. And then therefore, that is an important aspect in relation to the 2024 elections. And hopefully, the fact that these elements have now been put into the process, they will increase the number of participants in the electoral process. Obviously, 2019 had its own shortcomings. And then also because the Electoral Commission has now introduced the online voter registration. Hopefully, more young people will take advantage of that platform and begin to participate in the process.
So you say 2019 had disadvantages going into this election. As you've mentioned, others have said that it's a watershed moment for South Africa. There is the Electoral Amendment Act that has come into effect, allowing for independents to take part in the process. But there's also the fact that the number of political parties contesting the elections has pretty much grown in leaps and bounds. And the question is what that adds to the quality of our democracy. One young person, a medical student, in fact, who was interviewed about these upcoming elections, said, the problem is I actually don't even know who to vote for anymore because there's so many.
It is, of course, a problem if you've got so many political parties and independents participating in the process. And it's going to be very difficult for individuals to be able to differentiate and contrast between different political parties and messaging that will be coming from independents. But it is unfortunately, the current electoral landscape, and because the Constitutional Court has ruled that individuals can now participate as independents, it is going to be important for young people and for everybody else to listen to various messages as it comes from either independents or from political parties, and then make sure that they can actually be able to discern the differences amongst all this different messaging. So unfortunately, there isn't much that we can do in terms of a myriad of emergence of political parties. It is a democracy, and because it's a democracy, any person who wants to participate can form a political party and contest the elections. It is the responsibility of the media, the civil society, political parties to make sure that the electorate can understand the differences between different messages that will be coming out from different individuals and political parties, and then be able to understand the differences and choose whichever political party or individuals that they would like to elect going forward.
I want to look at the role of election prediction polls. We've seen quite a number of them, and the types of predictions that they're making. And a lot of it seems to focus on the disaffection with the ANC. But as we've seen throughout the years, it has not directly translated into support for the opposition. The DA putting out a statement earlier on saying that with these external polls, they've shown that the gap is closing over the last few months, and their internal polling has shown that they are now something like 7% away from the margins with the ANC in terms of parity. What does it mean to the ordinary man on the street, and how they ought to interpret it? Does it influence how people actually vote at the end of the day?
Of course, it does influence how voters participate in the process. If you look at the trends from 2016, you realize that increasingly in South Africa, you're not really having one dominant political party, unlike in the past. And the results of the last local government elections in metropolitan areas clearly illustrate this aspect. And because of that, there are increasingly more individuals and political parties who are beginning to think that they can actually be able to make a difference, and that the fact that there is no one dominant political party, that they themselves can actually be able to be part of governance going forward, either at the provincial level or at the national level. So those are some of the aspects that are beginning to make people begin to feel that they can actually make a difference in terms of governance of the country going forward.